The Plaguekeeper's oath. I remember the day I walked out of that office, beat bare thick with the stench of betrayal. My supervisor, a man I once respected, sat across from me, eyes cold as he handed me my termination letter. "You're making a mistake, Emily. The reports must reflect the state of affairs, not your fantasies." He smirked, as if my belief in the unseen was a joke. I was a public health officer, a plague site investigator. And I had just lost my career for refusing to falsify infectious disease reports. "Fantasies?" I echoed, my voice trembling with rage. "You think I'm delusional for believing in the ecological realities of infectious curses? I've seen the data. I've witnessed the horrors." He waved me off dismissively, and I stormed out, the laughter of my colleagues ringing in my ears, mocking me for my obsession with what they deemed ridiculous. They called me insane, unhealthy, a disgrace to the family name. I was a pariah, a fool chasing shadows, but I knew the truth. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me as I delved deeper into the world of living plague sites, areas where disease and despair intertwined with something more sinister. I became consumed by the idea that these places were not just breeding grounds for pathogens, but something sentient, feeding off our collective illness and fear. I sought out the whispers of these anomalies. Mapping cursed territories like a cartographer of dread, isolation became my only companion. I traveled from decaying hospitals in forgotten towns to abandoned asylums where the echoes of madness reverberated through crumbling walls. Each site I investigated was a testament to the suffering of those who had been cast aside, their pain feeding the very entities I sought to understand. I documented everything, each finding more chilling than the last. But the world outside remained blind to the truths I uncovered. Years passed, and I became known in certain circles as a pioneer of infectious curse ecology. My research, once ridiculed, was now a chilling warning to those who dared to look. I had faced horrors that would shatter most, yet I emerged not unscathed, but transformed. I was no longer the naive investigator who had sought validation from my family. I returned home, not as a disgrace, but as a harbinger of what they had mocked. The evening I stepped through the door of my childhood home, memories flooded back, dinner table arguments, laughter that turned to scorn when I dared to mention my work. My family stood in the living room, their expressions a mix of surprise and disbelief. My mother's eyes widened, her lips pressed into a thin line, and my father's jaw clenched as I revealed the weight of my knowledge. "I've come to show you," I said, my voice steady yet laced with a tremor of dread. "What I've learned, what I faced. You need to understand." Their laughter had long since faded, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. I could feel the air thicken with tension, the familiar walls closing in like a noose. I pulled out my research, the evidence of my findings, the photographs of the plague sites, the charts mapping the outbreaks that defied rational explanation. "Look," I urged, spreading the materials across the coffee table. "These places are alive, feeding off fear and illness. They're not just sites of contagion. They're entities unto themselves. I've seen the manifestations, the shadows that creep and crawl, the whispers of the afflicted." My family exchanged glances, skepticism etched in their features. "Emily, this is just," my father began, but I interrupted, the urgency rising within me. "No, you have to listen. It's real. I brought something with me." I reached into my bag, pulling out a small vial filled with a dark, viscous liquid that pulsed ominously. "This is a sample from the site in Grey Hollow. It's an infectious curse, a sentient contagion. It's been dormant until now, but I fear." Before I could finish, the room trembled. The lights flickered and dimmed, a low hum reverberating through the walls. My family froze. their faces draining of color as shadows coalesced in the corners, creeping toward us like a living darkness. What is happening? My mother stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. I stood paralyzed, the vial slipping from my fingers and shattering on the floor. The darkness erupted, swirling around us with a violent hunger. I could hear the cries of the afflicted echoing in my mind, their pain manifesting into a cacophony of whispers, begging for release. The shadows writhed and twisted, taking form, revealing the twisted faces of those who had succumbed to despair. My family stumbled back, terror etched across their features. They were witnessing what they had ridiculed, the very essence of the curses I had studied. "Emily, help us!" my father screamed. But it was too late. The shadows surged, enveloping them, their laughter turning to screams as they faced the consequences of their disbelief. I stood rooted to the spot, a mixture of horror and vindication coursing through me. I had come to show them the truth, but in that moment I realized that some truths are too horrific to bear. When the shadows receded, silence fell like a shroud. I was left alone in the remnants of my childhood home, the echoes of my family's screams fading into the night. I had survived the horrors that had consumed them, but at what cost? As I stepped outside, the weight of my knowledge felt heavier than ever. I was no longer the naive investigator. I was the Plaguekeeper, a guardian of truths too terrifying for the world to acknowledge. I had uncovered horrors that would haunt my family forever, and in their mocking laughter, they had sealed their fate. I walked away into the darkness, knowing that the shadows were always watching, waiting for the next soul to mock the unseen. And I carried their weight with me, a chilling reminder of what it means to face the truth.